All right, everyone, welcome back to YouTube. And today it's all about the finding your balance with creativity. Now, if you go into any of the energetic, descriptions, I guess, of masculine and feminine, right? So if you're going to go down that esoteric, very subjective field, in my opinion. But if you're going to go down that, everybody is going to tell you that inherently creativity is something that is aligned with femininity, right? And to an extent, I would agree with this that statement at least, because when we find a big difference between men and women is that women inherently, on average, are much more creative than men. Men are much more logical, right? Like we think in problem solving approaches of 1 + 2 = 3, where women are more in this creative flow of saying, hey, I would love to birth this beautiful, like massive, very unique product or service, right? And men just have a harder time doing this, at least what I have found. Again, I believe that field of talking about this is kind of subjective, but I want to talk about it because the fact that there is an incredibly important piece with creativity that allows us to find balance not only in our lives but also within ourselves. Because I think there is a portion of us as men that wants to be creative that I think the logical side causes friction with, because we're always trying to figure out the how to, right? And this is something that I've talked about because it's been one of the things recently, one of my struggles to get over is this how. I see something I want to do, and then I have to create the how to get there. The problem with that is that doesn't allow creativity to flow. When we're trying to figure out the how all the time, we're allowing ourselves to simply see the world or see the objective through the lens of our previous experiences, not of something that we are completely unaware of. That's why the saying, you don't know what you don't know, is the reason why that actually has some validity, is because the fact of you don't know all of the aspects in which a way to achieve a creative goal can be made, because that creative goal came from a place where the how was not able to meet it there, because of the fact that it's not within your experience. So that creativity came out in a form in a way that showed you what you would like to do or what you would like to see, but it came out of a way that you have no experience to get there, or you would have already done it, right? So inherently, us as men asking how to get somewhere when we have this creativity come into our lives, us as men trying to figure out how to get there is inherently counterproductive to allowing that creativity to thrive in our lives. We have to release the how. So to partner up creativity with balancing our lives, when we get into a creative mode and we start to put things out there that look very different from what we've done, that seem very more complex in our accomplishments or goals, right, than what we've done in our past, we have to also be inviting to the fact that that accomplishment or that goal gets to be out there without a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, you may want to create a step 1, just be like, hey, here's the goal, here's the creative side of me, but I need to do one thing first. But then the rest of that, you have to be open to receiving on how that's going to come into play in your life as you separate from trying to figure out the how. And I say this because creativity has brought so much joy to my life, but that creativity has also been stifled by my desire to always try to figure out how. So I have a saying up on my board, and I keep looking over at it right now, but I have a saying up on my board is forget how. I have to remind myself every day, forget how, because I don't want to restrict my life anymore. I don't want to restrict how to get somewhere because of I need to know steps 1 through 10. I don't need to know that. And I've seen this play a pivotal role in my wife's business, because she doesn't look at the how. She creates something out of her desire to create, and then allows the pieces to fall in. She will take one step and then allow the rest of the steps to fall in place after that step is taken, and then the next step. She doesn't always try to figure out the how. And for me, that was a big lesson, because her success was predicated off of embracing the creativity and then allowing the creativity to put the steps in place. But we struggle with this as men because the logical side to us always wants to come out. And while there's a purpose and there is an advantage to that logical side in other scenarios, in this particular scenario, when we're trying to create more balance in our lives, it's not helpful. And a lot of times it's actually debilitating. This is why, there's so many guys out there that sit there and suffer in their lifestyle, because the fact that they see the change they want, or they see the creative life they could have, but they look at all of the aspects it takes to get there. And when those all stack up, it looks like this massive, massive mountain they have to climb. But if they just looked at one step forward, the creativity of what they want would still be there without having a massive hurdle. They would just see it, and then they would see the first step, and then that's all they'd take. And then from there, the next step would be shown to them, and then the next step, and something else might fall in line that gets them 10 steps ahead that they never would have thought about. But we don't embrace this creativity because inherently, as I started this episode, inherently it's tied to femininity. And in that, we don't necessarily instinctually go to that mindset, number one. And to embrace that mindset, sometimes men believe it's emasculating because you're embracing a feminine feature. But when we embrace that and we expose ourselves to that creativity, we allow our lives to look very different, and we allow that difference to be something that drives our happiness and drives our joy and drives our connection to ourselves, and could potentially turn into our purpose, right? And how do we, the next question I would give myself in this is say, okay, Johnny, I get it. Like, I get it, that creativity is a way for us to balance ourselves, but it's also a way that we can connect with ourselves. I get that. And connect with maybe the little boy inside, because the little boys were creative. We didn't see a difference between masculine and feminine features. We just saw something we wanted to do and then chose to do it. That's exactly how we play as kids. There's no defining line between anything. We just say, hey, this is what we want to do, and we go do it. We don't put limitations on it. We don't try to logically think about it. Why? Because experience hasn't been there to predicate our steps. We don't have the experience to see the insurmountable mountain. So we just go and we do. And there's a lot of value in that. Now, there's a lot of value to the logical steps. Don't let this sound like I'm saying that that's a bad thing to have. But on the same token, when we don't have those logical steps and we just step forward and we don't see a limitation, we don't create a limitation for ourselves, we give ourselves the ability to expose our lives to so much more experience and to so much more joy. And so the next thing I would ask myself is, hey, I get it. I see what you're saying. Now, how do I implement this? Well, one of my good friends, Garen Jones, amazing, amazing influencer and human being, he said something on my podcast. I've heard him say it before, but you need to get back to re-exposing yourself, especially as a man. You got to get back to re-exposing yourself to creativity. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like taking on something maybe that you used to enjoy in younger years, or taking on something that you've always wanted to do and doing that on the side of whatever it is you're doing in life right now. So make sure it's something that isn't so insurmountable in time that creates a hardship or a burden on your current position in life or what you're doing, but also make sure it is something that brings joy to you, that you're like, oh, I want to show up for this every day or every week, right? That is the power of this. So we have to reintroduce that creativity into our lives through a mechanism in which we are familiar with or desire to be familiar with, right? Something that is achievable and obtainable. So one of the things I can tell you is I used to write music. And I did nothing crazy. I wasn't like writing for big bands. I used to just write for my cousin's band and sing a couple songs with them, and it was fun. And I did that as a kid, and I've always loved music. So I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar. I never did. And so a while back was like, hey, I'm going to start getting lessons. So I paid for online lessons and I started to practice. And I practiced, almost every day for, maybe like 10 to 20 minutes a day, roughly. And then when I'd have my calls, I practiced for about 30, 45 minutes with my coach. So, but I took that on for myself because it was something I wanted to do. But I wanted to reinvigorate the creativity in my life, which then I could bring back to the other areas of my life, like my business, like this, the content creation for you guys. But for men, this is a hard thing because the fact that we get to this point where as adult males, we think we have to have the answers to everything and we have to see the logical progression, but you do get the ability to be a kid again. Just give that opportunity to yourself, to ask yourself what you want to do. Maybe it is you want to pick up an instrument. Maybe it is you want to get back out and play a sport. So you find an adult league that you can be part of and you play that once a week, right? Maybe it is that you read or write a book or write poems or write music or something like that. Maybe it is you get back to just something simple that you loved doing as a kid, something as simple as running or riding a bike. Garen's was running and singing, so he sang. And he did that in prison. And so it's like, guys, get back to something that really lights you up and makes you have those creative juices flow. And then take that back to your work. Take it back to your business. Take it back to your relationships. Take it back to your life in other areas and let it expand for you and balance the rest of your life. That's the key. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode on YouTube, and I'll see y'all next week.